Hello everyone. In the previous session, we have discussed about the basics of functions. So today we'll discuss more about the function, mainly about the function arguments. So whenever the function is called, a set of arguments can be passed and those arguments will be received by the function as parameters. A function uses different types of arguments, formal arguments. So like positional arguments, keyword arguments, default arguments and variable length arguments. Let us see more about all these different types of arguments. The first one, the positional arguments. So where the number of parameter passed and the number of parameter received and the order in which the parameter or the arguments passed is received in the same order. So it is said to be the positional arguments. So positional are also called as the required arguments are the arguments passed to the function in correct positional order. So the number and the position will be received as it is, as passed. Say in the example, now the function in the print me function, whatever we have written, so it receives one parameter str. So while calling the function, you can notice that it's just called print me without passing any parameter. Means actually, so one argument, one parameter defined in the function definition, specified in the function definition, but while calling the function is called without any arguments, so that it does not match the number of arguments passed and the number of parameter received does not match, so it gives an error message. So it says clearly that the number as well as the position is very important. So here we have one more example where the function receives two parameters S1 and S2. So here whatever the first value that we pass gets copied to S1 and whatever the second value we pass gets copied to S2. So that's clearly given in the example, like for the first call we pass hello and Python, two different arguments, and it is received in the same order. In the second also the Python and hi, so that is also received in the same order and we can see the output also. So therefore arguments are passed and received in the positional order. So the second type, that is the keyword arguments, where the arguments can be labeled while calling. While calling the function, when passing the arguments, we can label it, we can give a name to the values whatever we pass. So when we use keyword arguments in a function call, the caller identifies the arguments by the name given or the label given. So this allows to place the argument out of order. So whenever we use keyword arguments, so then the order does not matter, the keyword matters. Okay, so in the example you can see that the same two parameter the function receives print data, while calling the print data, should be print data not print me. So while calling the print data, so we are sending two values hello and Python. So both are labeled. So hello is labeled as S1, Python is labeled as S2. So those two are the keyword arguments. So while receiving, so it's mentioned that S1 and S2. So therefore the order does not matter. So whatever is labeled S1 gets copied to the parameter S1 and whatever is labeled as S2 gets copied to the matching parameter. So it is said to be keyword arguments. So here the order does not matter, the keyword should match. Okay. So whatever we have labeled while calling the function, so the matching parameter only it will take or it will gets copied. So therefore even if we pass it in any order, so we are getting the result same. So then the third type is the default argument. So, in case if any value missing, so if we define the default parameter while defining the function, we can put some default value to the parameter. In case if the value for that parameter is received, so then whatever the value received will be considered. In case if the data value is missing for that particular parameter, so then the default value will be taken. So, a default argument is an argument that assumes a default value if a value is not provided in the function call for that argument. Say for in the example, the print info function receives two parameters, one is name and second one is the age. A default value of 35 is set to age. So, it assumes that default value. In case the calling function passes two parameters, so then whatever the value it receives will be considered. In the first call, age is equal to 50 and name is equal to some value given, make it. So, those values will be taken into consideration. Whereas in the second call, we can notice that, you can observe that only the name parameter or the name value is sent, but the age is missing there in the call, but it is displaying 35 because it is defined as a default value. So, like this, the default value also can be set. In case if the value for that parameter is missing, then it is going to take the default value. And the one more type is the most important whenever we call the function sometimes. So, we need to pass the values that is more than the defined number of parameters. So, when a function needs to process more arguments than specified while defining the function, so then variable length arguments are used. Sometimes we do not know how many values we need to pass for the subfunction when calling the subfunction. So, then the variable length argument can be used, so that the variable length argument is capable of storing any number of parameters that is sent. So, these arguments are called variable length argument because it can store any number of arguments. So, there is no limitation that only 2 can be passed or 3 parameters passed, because while defining the function we have defined only 2 or 3, nothing like that. We can send any number of arguments. So, it will be stored in the variable length arguments as a sequence. See, there is a syntax of how to pass the variable length argument. So, we can have any number of formal arguments, okay, either positional or default or keyword arguments can be used. Along with that, if we have a variable length of arguments, so that also we can define. So, variable length arguments defined with a star. An asterisk is placed before the variable length argument name, and that will hold the values of all the non-keyword variable arguments. So, here it is clear with an example. So, where we have a function called as print info. Actually, the number of arguments defined is 2. One is argument 1 and second one is the variable type of argument. So, that is defined within asterisk. So, that when we call the function, so if only the first parameter whatever we pass, it gets copied to argument 1, the first parameter, and rest all the arguments will be copied to the second variable type of arguments, so that we can pass any number of arguments to the function, and in the example it is clearly given how it gets processed. A tuple been created. The variable length argument means a tuple is going to be created and it hold all the incoming parameter, additional parameters that is given. So, will be copied to the tuple and we can process it easily in the program. So, with this we have discussed about the various types of arguments in function. Thank you.